Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today, I just want to do a quick video. I'm going to try and keep this quick and fast because you've done most of the work. This is just a way to check. All right, so I'm going to briefly go over the 4 macromolecules that are necessary for life. For each one, I'm going to quickly mention obviously the macromolecule, proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids. I'm going to say they're a monomer, the thing that makes the little pieces that make up that macro, large molecule. Some possible examples and potential functions. Each one of these topics could take a 30-minute conversation, so this is just to double check your own research and kind of fill in any gaps that maybe you've missed. So have your notes out in front of you, your chart in front of you, and if there's anything that you missed that I say and you didn't add to it or you weren't really sure what that was, this is your chance to kind of pause the video and go over it. So I'm hoping to make this kind of quick because I'm just going to kind of do bullet points for each one. All right, so let's start with carbohydrates, probably because these are the ones you're most familiar with. Our carbohydrates are found throughout your body. They are made up of something called monosaccharide. Saccharide means sugar, and so monosaccharides are very simple sugar molecules. Some of the ones you guys are very familiar with are probably sucrose, fructose. Sucrose is like the sugar, it's like table sugar that you have in food. Fructose is like fruit sugar you find in like apples and things like that. The one that is the most common that our cells need is glucose. It is basically the fundamental particle where our cells get their energy. And we'll talk about that process of how we get energy from glucose. Anything that ends with OSE is a sugar or a carbohydrate. The most popular thing, or the most common uses or functions of carbohydrates, is a primary dietary source. It's where we get most of our, especially short-term energy. All right, you get energy that you need kind of right now. You have something with carbohydrates and with carbs. These are the same things. All right, this is where that word comes from. They're also, so you see in the diagram right here, they're also used in some cell signaling, which we'll talk a little bit about when we talk about the plasma membrane. So that's carbohydrates, energy. Lipids, all right? Lipids are made up of the monomer of fatty acids or oils. There's kind of a broad category with these. One of the main examples of these are something called phospholipids. They are the molecule that makes up the outer layer of your cell, which we'll talk more about the cell membrane. The way they work are very, very important. The ability of how some parts of it are attracted to water and some parts are afraid of water and repel water, how they're very fluid. Think of kind of like oily, like it's kind of slippery. That's fat. We find them in fats and oils, butter and oil. And it kind of, when you think of fat, you're thinking of basically a source of lipids. All right. They're found, like I said, in the cell membrane. They are found in your joints, like on the little discs between your joints or between your spine. And they are also actually a really good energy source. When we eat too many carbohydrates and we don't use them, our body stores them as a process of turning them into a lipid, and our body stores that as fat. And if we are deprived of energy, our bodies will then go into those fat or adipose cells. Adipose cell is a fat cell that goes in there and takes out that lipid and burns it into energy. All right. So lipids are actually also kind of a secondary source of stored energy, but the cell membrane is one of their biggest functions, especially in what we'll be talking about in this class. Lipids, slippery oils. All right, proteins. This one's hard and easy at the same time because, I'll explain why. Proteins are made up of the monomer called amino acids. This is the one I did the example in the video. There's a picture of it here on the right side. That is an amino acid. That they all follow the kind of the same structure, except for what goes in this place where the R is. That's what makes every amino acid a little bit different from each other. They all look the same right there, except for what they call the R group. All right. Proteins are some examples of things that are proteins. I mean, oh my gosh, just some really simple ones would be like things like insulin, which if you are familiar with the disease, diabetes, those are people who do not have proper insulin working. It helps break down your blood sugar. Amylase, which is an enzyme that's in your saliva that starts to break down food. Hemoglobin, which is a picture we have there. That is the hemoglobin is the protein on red blood cells that carries oxygen. All right, which means if that protein is improperly made, its structure is poor, it can't do its proper function. Proteins are the workers of the cell. If there's any function that the cell possibly does, proteins are directly or indirectly involved. They do all the work. They are the working class of the cell. They do everything or are involved in every single process. Right? There's proteins that literally are in jobs of carrying, like being the mailman and who carries things from one side of the cell to the other. There's proteins that let things in and out of the cell, like a doormat, like any kind of job the cell has done, proteins are involved. All right, so I always like to call them the workers of the cell, which we'll spend like 75% of this year talking about proteins. And the last macromolecule is the nucleic acid, which are made up of something called nucleotides. Nucleotides all have different parts to them. The most common examples of these are DNA and RNA, which is kind of a smaller strand of DNA. All right? DNA literally stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, the Na in DNA. All right. Probably the fancy definition you saw for this was storing genetic information, which is not wrong, but what does that mean? So your DNA is the instruction manual on how for your cell to do the stuff it needs to do. All right. More importantly, it's actually the instruction manual on how to make the workers to make your cells. It's actually the instruction manual on how to make proteins. And that's the one that does. The DNA does not actually do anything, just like an instruction manual does not build your Lego set. All right, you build the Lego set. All right, it is just the instructions, and that's what DNA and RNA, which are examples, are. So those were just a couple of things I talked about: the monomers, some examples, and some functions of each one of the 4 macromolecules. Make sure if you feel like you didn't fill anything in, or if I went too fast on one part, go back in the video and watch it again. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Good luck, and may the science be with you. Bye.